As a top 1% store, I realize that most of the 99% stores are missing out on massive sales that they're leaving on the table. That's because they're not applying this very important strategy in their Etsy business. This is the same reason why listings like this do 10x the sales than everybody else, despite having arguably the same photography, all the same keywords. What's going on? And how can you be the seller that's competing on that level without having to change your photography or your keywords? It is the same reason why I think people focusing so much on SEO are wasting their time. SEO is important in the beginning of your shop, in the beginning journey, but people keep searching for SEO. They try to think that SEO is the saving grace. What keywords am I not putting into my listing? How should I change my title in order to get more sales? If we take a look at my statistics on one of my shops, we see that majority of my sales come from not search. That is important to note. Before we take a look at that again, I want you to really think about this. We've got this whole thing backwards. We think customers go on Etsy, they start typing into search personalized necklaces. That's not the journey. And in fact, the statistics show, the stats show that that's not the journey of the majority of the customer. That is 1/5 of the customer. So what's happening to most of the other customers? Well, actually, it is where Etsy recommends their listing. Customers have an easier time clicking and scrolling than they do typing. In fact, Etsy would rather have their customers click on stuff than have them search. And I'll talk about that in a bit, why that's so important, why Etsy needs to focus on recommendation than search. Let's go back on my statistics. Most of my sales come from Etsy app and other pages. That means Etsy recommends my listings. If you're focusing on search, according to my statistic on one of my shops, you're only focusing on 1/5 of the potential sales. So most of the shop's strategy is completely backwards. And let's reshape that in order to tap into the missing sales that we're not getting. We used to think before this video, or before you came across this channel that you should subscribe to, that SEO is fundamental and we need to rank as high as possible on the Etsy platform. Instead, what we should be thinking about is how can I have Etsy recommend my products more, which we will talk about in this video. But you're saying, but Vlad, isn't it when we rank higher, that's when we're recommended more? Think of it backwards. If we're recommended more, we're gonna rank higher because Etsy only ranks things higher that it wants to recommend. So if you focus on the majority of the traffic, then the minority will follow. You need to understand the tasks of Etsy. What is it supposed to do? So there are creative people that make creative product. There are pieces of artwork. Let's just take a wall hanging. Some form of a wall hanging that has artistry to it. The task of the seller, if we are focusing on SEO, let's just assume that SEO is the majority of the sales. Let's just assume that's the requirement. You created an art piece that now you have to convert into keywords. Now, we all know that you can't do that with artwork. Some things about the art there are just no words for. When somebody looks at it, they get it, and there's no words to explain it. So the difficulty for the artist is to be able to quantify that, is to be able to formulate it or organize it into an SEO-friendly format so that it can then be indexed properly. The other struggle is for the customer to be able to know what keywords to type into search to be able to access that index appropriately. That is close to impossible to be able to function at that format. So therefore, Etsy has to be able to focus its whole strategy on Etsy being able to recommend this artwork to the customer that will most likely appreciate it. Have you ever had that situation? You're like, what is that thing called? You know what it's called, you know what it is, but you forgot the words for it. But imagine if you don't even know that those things, those amazing things out there exist. You need the help of the algorithm to be able to recommend those products for you. And as a seller, you need someone's help to sell your product without you using your words. The fact is, they're trying to make the process of an artist being able to sell to a seller that will appreciate that artwork as easy as possible, which means the skill of SEO to being able to do SEO on Etsy is a dying art. The reason why it's a dying art is because Etsy is trying to figure out the SEO without your help. And the more it can do that, the more efficient that sellers can connect with the right customers. If you want proof, go on your search analytics and find the keywords that your product is ranking on and you will find that your product is ranking on keywords that don't even exist in your listing. And then try the other way around. Try to create a word that doesn't exist in the English dictionary that nobody knows exists. Just make up any word. Put that in the description and see if you can search that keyword that exists nowhere, only on your listing. If it is according to search, then you should be able to rank top on that made up keyword. And you're not going to find your listing. Why? Because Etsy doesn't care as much of your SEO as people think. Now, I talk about creating a description, the first 160 characters for SEO. That is still important, but not as important as recommendation. Recommendation trumps all SEO. As a business model, it is more appropriate for Etsy to be in control of that process where the sellers are connected with the buyers. It wants to have that control as a business model. That's more appropriate than putting the trust into the knowledge of the sellers to be able to properly SEO and the buyers to be able to know the keywords to find the correct product. So recommendation has to be the primary efforts and priority of Etsy. The other thing is, like I mentioned, clicking and scrolling is the best converting behavior on any website. If you have to type at any point, you have to stop. You have to think. You have to remember. You have to know. And all those things are friction to any website. So fluidity must be primary for the Etsy website. So how do you have your listing be more recommended by Etsy? Now, I was going to make it into points, and I think those points you all understand. Now, my point number one was going to be technically that if you are the only one that sells a certain kind of product, you're going to be recommended as a theory. Now, that is short-lived because people will catch on and they'll start saturating that market. Number two is study your customer and design something customer can relate to, thus being recommended to other customers that are in that same category. You all know that, and you've watched my videos before. I want you guys to really think about the next thing I'm going to say. Now, if you don't get it at first, don't worry. I'm going to give you guys examples so that you can understand the whole concept. Does your product have the X factor that directly communicates to your customer that is unique and scarce to the market? Handful, mouthful. This is what I mean. Have you watched X Factor, the singing show? People don't have the words to the thing they're looking for, but they all know it when they hear it, or at least the judges do. And so they're listening for that X factor. There's no words. You can't categorize that, but everybody knows when they see it. So does your product have that X factor that has a direct communication to your customer? And it is very unique and limited or scarce to the market. All right, so here are some examples. Look at this necklace here. This necklace has like 16 reviews in a single day. Now, the ratio reviews per sales is like 5 to 7 sales per one review. You guys do the math on how much sales they're making per day. Their competitors on the same page are making a fraction of that. They'll be lucky if they get consistent reviews on each day. So what is going on? Now, necklaces are very difficult to sell. They're a very saturated market, and I have friends that are running necklace shops, and it is a very, very difficult product to sell unless you're selling it during Christmas time. At that point, so many people buy necklaces, you can sell it. But it's very difficult to sell. Why is this one just completely crushing all their competitors? So if you're a customer that likes thin fonts, and let's just say you don't wear t-shirts with graphic design, you just wear t-shirts that are blank, you're all about simplicity and subtlety and elegance. You're a person that has bought this kind of necklace before. You're a person that bought this for your bridesmaids. And when you see this listing compared to these, you have a whole nother response. So it has that X factor that communicates to you as a buyer. And the other thing, it is scarce and unique to the market. So it's unique, meaning nobody else is doing it. Everybody else is just engraving on horizontal and vertical bars. The scarcity is that you need a high-powered laser to even make a product like that. Now, it's not even about machines, and I'll give you some more example. But for now, let's just hold on to this one for a second so you understand the concept. It is communicating to the customer on such a deeper level because of this elegance that it has. Let me give you another example, a digital product. Digital products are very, like I said, saturated. Everybody's doing it. But why does this earring shop killing it, crushing it on digital files? They're doing SVGs. So if you want to get into crafts and you have a forge, a glow forge, or a way to cut the wood, and you want to make yourself some earrings, all other competitors are just doing digital file representation of what that earring could look like. But this person has decided to put this whole thing together and actually take a photo to describe to the customer what the earring is going to look like in a very, very awesome way. This person can do crafts. This person can really put it together and display it to the customer. It has that X factor, like this is a wow moment for whoever wants to get into making earrings, right? And it is unique, means nobody is doing it because it's hard to do. Somebody's gonna have to have the skill of craftsmanship to put this together and then take a stunning photo and posting it. So it's unique and scarce because nobody wants to do it. All the digital competitors, they just like to do it digitally. They do not want to put in the work, which means there's limited amount of sellers that do that on the Etsy platform. Here's another idea. It doesn't have to be particularly to one listing. It could be a whole shop, like this one. A lot of competitors that are selling tablecloth or they're selling table runners or any kind of decor items, they're focusing on one product individually. They either buy it from a third party or they modify it or they sew it somehow, and they focus on one product individually. However, the store has a designer, an interior designer who knows what the heck they're talking about when it comes to designing the home, the interior of a home. They have the X factor of being a designer, an interior designer that communicates very powerfully with their brand. And there is scarcity in the skill to be able to be such a good designer and such a good photographer at the same time, or having the ability to access great photography and then represent your brand on the Etsy platform. That is unique and scarce to the market. Now, don't get me wrong. You don't say, okay, don't care about titles, don't care about descriptions. Those are still important. In fact, you can have all of those and screw up on your description because customers are like, what the heck is he talking about? The photos are stunning, the features are stunning, and you can tank all of that if you have a horrible description. Now, I talk about how to write a great description in this video, so go ahead and check it out.